we hop in the car, and we're hightailing it across another bridge to get to 95.7 The Game to talk to all of you fine folks. And it wasn't until then that we went, apparently Brock Purdy's just fine.
He's just fine.
There's no pup list even. This whole thing has gone about as well as it could have gone. And in that moment, not that I've never felt this before, I think we all have, but in that moment, it sort of dawned on me, good Lord, this has really just gone so unfortunately for Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, this is just, there's nothing is his fault. And what sort of hit me in a different way is if Brock Purdy is just unquestionably healthy and unquestionably starting, I never really thought about it this way, even though we've had a lot of talk about the race to be QB2. But if you're the 49ers and the presumption is that Trey Lance is going to be your starter because you move heaven and earth to get him, and he's the number 3 overall pick, and he's only had 4 starts, and we all know the story of how they ended up with Brock Purdy. But not only have the 49ers not said, hey, politics will make you number 1. They have not said that, and they deserve credit. They didn't even say, hey, politics will make you number 2.
Right.
That's what's crazy. Brock, it appears, is going to be fine. And we don't even know if the politics of drafting Trey Lance will even allow him the backup job. This is just, it's unprecedented. This is totally, completely unprecedented.
Which tells me that they know more about Trey Lance than we think that they know, or that we believe in our own minds based on where he was drafted. If they aren't willing to give him the number 2 outright, if they're willing to bring in Sam Darnold as a competitive number 2 in advance, well, that tells me that they are a little bit uncertain about who Brock Purdy, or who Trey Lance is, rather, in terms of his ability to be number 2.
Not surprisingly, many of the questions today, as Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch spoke publicly, many of the questions were about the quarterback position. Here's what he had to say, and this is John Lynch, first and foremost, about Brock Purdy.
Brock's cleared and ready to go. He's been cleared. He's going to be without restrictions. Now, having said that, we're sticking and we're adhering to a plan that's been put in place for some time. He got after it the last couple of days. We upped his pitch count, so it was kind of the peak of the buildup, and so he'll take off day 1. But we believe in that plan, so he's cleared without restriction. There will be some time off, due to pitch count and all that. Sticking to the plan. But the great news is Brock has worked his tail off, and he's ready to go.
I mean, can we all be honest here for a second? Nobody thought this is what it was going to sound like in July.
Right.
We've all been questioning September, maybe
late
August.
Yeah.
Did you think you'd hear that before we got to August 1st? They're like,
No.
oh, he's cleared, ready to go.
It's about
All
pitch
done.
count. It's pitch
What?
count, yeah. Which means the season starts in, 7.5 weeks? And so he'll be fine. The pitch count can get ramped up, and he'll be good to go.
This is your sweet spot. We got all kinds of your boy Kyle Shanahan today.
I need it and stuff.
How many stuffs do we have? Let's find out. Shanahan on the goal for Brock Purdy.
I mean, I think the goal is a couple weeks from now. I haven't looked that far past. We won't change that till that happens, and as long as it keeps staying on the course, then I'll eventually go all the days. But.
Okay, that's none. There's no stuffs in there.
Yeah,
but that's the goal.
He'll eventually go all the days.
Let's try another one. How about Purdy's velocity? Kyle Shanahan.
He looks like Brock, and that's when you talking to like quarterbacks who've had this and stuff before, like. I'm talking to Steve Berline, and he had this, and it was so scary. But kind of what he told me is how it usually goes. It's a clean thing, even though it takes a while. But they always say like 6 to 9 months because it is clean. And if everything goes right and you do all your stuff, I just remember him telling me most likely it would be like that because it was for him. And just watching Brock go through it and watching all the steps and the milestones that he had to get to and watch him throw every day, it looked like that. So I always thought in my mind, just so I wouldn't be disappointed, it would take a few weeks in camp. But he always looked like he would be ready because you didn't see any setbacks. And just talking to other guys, that's how it ended up. And watching it on our own, I thought it would go that way. You don't really say that. You wait to hear it from Brock, and to get back and talk to him last week and just to hear how he felt just mentally and being able to see physically, he's ready to go.
You know what is standing out to me? And because, again, we've been on the golf course. This is the first time for us hearing a lot of these comments from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. You know what stands out? They're talking about this Brock Purdy injury in the past tense.
Right.
They're talking about in the past tense.
He's gotten through it.
Yeah.
It's over. He's here. He's him.
What the hell's going on? This is wild. I mean, I can't wait, in fact, to talk to Doc Pandy, who's going to join us a little bit later, because Steve Young, just a couple of days ago, said after talking to the actual doctor who did the procedure on Brock Purdy, understand, yes, he could play week 1, but even if he does, he's not going to be 100%. And now I'm listening to Shanahan and Lynch and going, well, how could he not be 100% by week 1? Or what does that mean? Maybe like he's ready to go, but by the same token, there is some sort of a ramp up. Or as Doc always says, like even guys who come back from a torn ACL, they're not fully themselves.
Sure.
Sometimes for another full year after that. So I'm really fascinated to throw those questions at him after getting this information, because just listening to their tone, they sound unconcerned. They sound like this is done. It is a part of their past. They will manage his reentry, but Brock Purdy is going to be the quarterback throughout camp. I didn't even think that was possible.
Right. Throughout camp, other than every third day when he's going to step back, he won't throw more than 3 days in a row in the beginning of camp. And so when he's out there, he'll be with the first team offense. And the other part of it was when he's not out there, it'll be Lance and Darnold splitting reps with the first team. So we can get into that part of the comments, which tells me it's 2A and 2B. It's not QB1, QB2, QB3. It's a bit of a 2A and a 2B in terms of Darnold and Lance. But the fact that Brock Purdy is coming back with only a little bit of restriction in camp, knowing that he won't play 3 straight days. But you mentioned it, Mark, the fact that they're looking at this in terms of what he went through and what is already done. Although he did mention Jake Delhomme, which took him 6 to 9 months to get all the way back. So I wonder if, if there isn't still a little bit of concern in terms of, what might happen when Brock Purdy plays, or, what happens if he plays back-to-back days.
Here's what he said about exactly what you're talking about. First team reps and the plan to sort of get Brock back to action.
He will when he's out there. The throwing plan's a little different. We're never going to have him go 3 days in a row. And so like today he threw just with his schedule from the weekend and everything. So today he threw, so tomorrow he won't practice. So the other guys will do the same thing as OTAs. They'll both go with the ones. And then Brock will have practices 2 and 3 to go. Then he'll take the next one off. So keep going that way.
Okay, so 95.7 The Game, as you all know, is going to be out there. Live, Hilton, Santa Clara, both tomorrow and Thursday. We're going to go down and check out camp. Kyle's saying right there, we're not going to see Brock Purdy. We're going to see Sam Darnold and Trey Lance. And quite frankly, there's actually kind of some beauty in that.
Totally.
Because whether this is fair, whether it's not, whether it's annoying or not, this is what people are going to be watching, which is now the battle for QB2. And again, I'm struck in a way that even though it may sound obvious, we've had the conversation 100 times. I've been on the side of the fence, I think, as have you, that there is not the question that people think there is in terms of who the 49ers starting quarterback is. There was simply a question of health. The way they're talking now, that suggests there is no longer much of a question of health.
Right.
And now you start to wonder if the 49ers felt that way all along, if they really felt like things were looking great for Brock Purdy all along, why would they do what they did in bringing in someone to challenge Trey Lance to even be the 2?
Yeah.
It's wild, man. The whole thing is just, it's crazy, the lack of opportunity that he's getting. But it also speaks volumes.
Well, and opportunities earned, as we know. Like, opportunity in pro sports is never just given. You don't give Casey Schmidt at bats because, oh boy, we feel like we owe it to you. And Patrick Bailey is not the catcher now because you feel like you owe it to him to give him a shot. He's catching because he's been amazing. And that's the way that goes. And Trey Lance got an opportunity, and they saw what they saw, and they loved it, or they didn't love it. And so they brought in Sam Darnold to be a guy who can compete with him. And that's just the way that goes. And so that's why tomorrow, I think, is so fascinating on day one of camp, because Brock Purdy won't throw tomorrow. Kyle just said that in the soundbite you played. So it comes down to the ones will be split between Trey and Sam, and we'll all get a chance to see for the first time direct competition.
Okay, so 1-2 punch from Kyle Shanahan on that, which is first talking about how he plans to handle those two guys.
Most likely, we're going to go through that this afternoon as the coaches. So that is most likely what we're going to do, but hope you guys allow me to change my mind if we do it differently. But we'll make sure it's even for them, whether we split it up that one day or we give one practice and the guy the next one that Brock's not there.
Okay, so they're going to evenly split it unless they don't.
Right. And give him the latitude to do that, which absolutely we will.
Okay, so that was, by the way, that's Kyle right there being like, everybody calm down.
Back up.
If Darnold, don't go freak out if Darnold is the one day. And I'd like to tell Kyle this, too bad. That ain't how life works anymore.
But I wonder, in terms of what you're talking about, and you're absolutely right, like for tomorrow, if that's going to be the plan, like one guy maybe gets more reps on the first day, you got to give Trey Lance more of that first day rep. Dude. Otherwise, all of us chuckleheads on the radio and all of the people on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter and Facebook and X and Threads and whatever else we're doing these days, everyone else is going to go crazy saying, oh my God, Sam Darnold got 75% of the reps.
There's nothing that you could do about that. And I think Kyle...
Well, you can give Trey more reps on day one.
Not if you don't think it's the right thing to do. Like Kyle Shanahan is right. One of the things he does well is he's going to do what he does. He's going to do what he thinks is the right thing for the head coach of the 49ers to do. And if everybody wants to lose their damn bananas... We had this conversation yesterday. I have to imagine that somewhere with a cigar and a snifter, this guy sits around at night and probably turns on podcasts or social media, or quite frankly doesn't, and just laughs. We just spent the better part of 4 months, people even 2 days ago, now that Kyle has announced that it's an open competition, and here he is 36 hours later being like, Brock's cleared, he's our quarterback. Anything else? And stuff.
Nice.
I mean... So there's no changing that. Everyone is going to overreact to what we see at practice every day. And I will say again what I said a couple of weeks ago. This is going to be the most talked about, most sought after, most discussed, most focused on backup quarterback battle in the history of the NFL.
Right, and it should be, because if Trey Lance wins, then, why did you sign Sam Darnold other than as an emergency policy? And I get that, and you might need 3 quarterbacks. You tend to, as a Niner organization, you tend to need 3 quarterbacks. But if Trey Lance loses this battle, then what do you do with Trey Lance? Because you can't have him be QB3. So it's a good thing, and we talked about this yesterday. If your backup quarterback battle is the biggest talking point in your camp, you're a pretty good team.
You're awesome.
Yeah.
You're awesome. That's the other thing why Kyle's probably sitting back and laughing. Nobody's worried about the holes at offensive line.
Right.
No one's talking about Bosa's unsigned deal. Nobody's saying a dang word about any of it. They're just like, QB2? QB3? Should they trade him? Now, Shanahan did admit that rotating the backup QBs in, out, 1s, 2s, 3s, there's a little bit of a challenge there.
There's more musical chairs with just one guy not always there. Going to take some days off. The fact that I was planning, because I was trying to be safe, that we'd have still a couple weeks before Brock came back. So the thought was always that we would just keep it going the same with Trey and I'm Sam. But I always was ready that this could happen. So the fact that this did happen is good. But, Brandon came on and did a really good job in OTAs. So that's, to me, what makes it a little bit harder, how to fit in a 4th guy. But he earned that. So that's what we're going to have to figure out as a staff with reps and everything. The 1s and 2s, pretty much, they get the same reps. So it's not a problem with the 1s and 2s. The 3s are the ones who don't get as much. I keep reminding Brock, who's might be stressed out, he's missing today or something. I keep reminding him all he got were 3 reps last year for like the first month. So he's going to have a lot more reps regardless of what happens this year. But that's now we got to figure out for the 2s, because Sudfeld got those mainly with the 2s last year. Now we're going to split those up with those guys, and I know that'll bleed into the 3s, but when it's said and done, hopefully it'll balance out. I know we're going to give them all an op, and that's also why those preseason games will probably be a little bit more for those guys too than they have been in the past.
This is radio. I wish y'all could see our faces.
Man.
Grandy, I'm looking at you. Dibs, I'm looking. I wish y'all
Thank
could.
God I'm not looking at Grandy.
Are your faces doing the same thing our faces are doing? This man just sat down and said, Brock Purdy's healthy. That's our starting quarterback. Now, as far as our 2 is concerned, we don't know. And hopefully you guys will let me play around with that a little bit, because, that's going to change on a day-to-day basis. Oh, by the way, before you go, we think Brandon Allen is amazing.
Our 4.
He's earned time in this. Oh, my goodness.
But there's no time, because normally you split the time between the 2s, and the 3s don't get a lot of reps, as we saw last year with Brock Purdy. He was the 3, and he didn't get a lot of reps. But Brock, don't worry about that. You're getting all the reps you want because you're the 1. But Brandon Allen, he mentioned his QB4. Brandon Allen.
Who does that?
No one.
What other NFL camp is opening up this week? And people are like, excuse me, can we sit down? Cameras are going crazy. Coach. Who's your QB4? Most coaches will be like, do we have one?
Right.
Is there even a 4th guy in the
There'd
building?
be that shuffling of paper, like, hold on, let me look. Where are my readers? I can't see this.
I don't want to say this.
Say it. Don't be a coward.
Is everybody else having the same reaction? They're moving on. They don't want this dude anymore.
Brandon Allen?
Yeah. What? I'm sorry. What other conclusion can we come to? What? Oh my gosh. I don't want to have this opinion, but I'm listening to this stuff for the first time. We're talking about what QB4 has earned.
Right.
We're talking about a battle for QB2 and
with a guy who's been here for about an hour and a half.
And a request from the coach on day 1. Don't get mad at me or overread into it if I start moving things around at that position.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, our QB1 is a guy who's barely played at this level, whose arm separated from his body about 5 months ago. He's totally cleared, and he is him. That's day 1.
And my QB4, by the way, is somebody who I actually kind of like. I'm going to mention him.
Right. How am I supposed to believe that you still have any thought whatsoever about a future for Trey Lance on this team? I'm just telling you what I hear.
Well, the door's open, and I hear what you hear.
Way.
But I hear what you hear. But I also hear what Kyle's talking about, which is, look, it's a QB2 battle between Sam and Trey. But don't sleep on Brandon Allen, because I really like QB4. And you know what? I want to make sure I give him some reps, because, and we saw this at mandatory minicamp when you and I were out there. Brandon Allen looked better than both those guys, in my opinion, in my humble novice opinion. It didn't look like he was a guy who couldn't compete. Your QB4 looked as good as your QB2 and your QB2 minus, whoever you want to put in those roles. Brandon Allen didn't look bad. So if you're Kyle Shanahan, you're looking at 3 guys for 2 spots, and it's wide open. It's wide open, I think.
Listen.
And that's what he's telling you.
Sure. There's obviously an openness for this to go a bunch of different ways. And nobody needs to tell this organization that people get hurt. And so it would be wonderful to have 8 quarterbacks. And we've already heard, these are sourced reports from the summer, that there wasn't much of a market for Trey Lance, which means their calls were made at least in one direction. But it didn't happen. Could it happen in August? Could other injuries happen? Could Trey Lance have an awesome preseason performance that gets other teams excited? Sure. This could definitely still go a bunch of ways. That's not what I'm talking about. I think the openness, the invitation for Trey Lance to be a part of this picture, that will always remain. But is there a plan? Is there a plan in any way, shape, or form that includes Trey Lance, like on purpose? It sure doesn't sound like it to me.
Well, there is a plan. And the plan is he comes in and shows great stuff, and he shows that, he's improved and he's really better than the quarterback that they thought that he was when they last saw him. That's absolutely the plan. Or one of the other two guys gets hurt. And it's possible.
Here's what Shanny said about Trey, specific to Trey. Okay, so first off, apparently they were in contact a lot over the summer.
Trey and I will FaceTime here and there over our 40 days away, and Trey's in a great spot. He's pumped to be back, feeling as good as he has, and he had a great OTAs, and really excited to get started for this.
I think Shanahan's just pumped to have a quarterback who takes his calls. So there's
Right,
that.
nice.
We got that. How different does Trey look than last year?
He looks healthier. I think his feet look better. I think sometimes I'm not taking away anything from Jeff, but Trey has put all the work in, and it's awesome that he had a guy that he can do that stuff with, but that's exactly what Brock did. It's what Sam Darnold does. I've never had a quarterback who doesn't do that. They all do that. It's like golf pros. They go to work on things with their swing and stuff like that, and I think the most important time is after the season in that March, April before OTAs, and it's always extremely important when the 40 days away. Trey's done that the last 2 years. He just went with a different guy this year.
Okay, Jeff Christensen is who he's talking about, the head-to-head work with a quarterback, and so Trey Lance, again, what are we getting out of this, which is, I think, the stuff that we've already known about Trey. Trey's head is screwed on completely straight.
Right.
He's awesome dude. He's
Putting in work.
Not going to take any shortcuts.
Yep.
He's going to do every single thing that an organization, a teammate asks him to do. And so all of that is great. I know what people want Shanahan to say there, and I don't know that he can, because you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. But you're looking for a word different than how does he look? Healthier. How about better? Like, that's what you'd love for him to say.
Sure.
He's doing a bunch of things better than he did before. And
He went on to detail the things that he has improved upon. His footwork would be one of them. He's healthier. His footwork is better. But ultimately, the thing that Trey Lance needs to be better at, it's playing quarterback in real games. And Kyle Shanahan either believes that he can be or he believes that he can't be. But at this point, you can't throw shade on Trey Lance, hoping that maybe you'll trade him.
I don't know why that I feel some version of stunned right now. I don't know why I feel that way.
You shouldn't be.
I didn't think Brock was going to be cleared on day one.
That's surprising.
Like, what?
But the other piece
after this whole summer, that's how it ends. We just show up. We're like, okay, we're ready to go.
Well, and he's cleared, but he can't play every day, and they're going to baby him, and they're going to pitch count him.
Sure,
they're going to pitch count him.
Sure.
The part to me that is even more stunning is the fact that he's like, yeah, Sam and Trey are going to split the twos. I mean, we knew that when they signed Sam to come in and be a backup, but the fact that Sam and Trey are competing for the second spot feels to me more like Trey Lance is the underdog in getting the QB2 job.
I don't think there's any question. I don't think
that to me is more stunning than the fact that Brock is healthy.
Well, for me, it's not, only because I questioned from the beginning how you would get Sam unless they told Sam, we think you're probably going to be the two.
Yeah.
I'm not going to promise you anything, but I still go back to why Sam, like on day one of free agency, takes this gig if he doesn't think he's going to be the two. I don't know why he would do that. I know that, yes, being in the Shanahan system is attractive.
Sure.
I know he needs to have his game rehabilitated in many respects. But I got to think that there were other offers out there that would get him closer to the QB1, or at least a guaranteed QB2.
Yeah, I guess, but at the same time, you look at the Trubisky model and you think, if I go somewhere that wins, I have a chance to rehab my image and then maybe go out and get a free agent gig.